Hi there, I'm Bonnie McCaffery, and thank you so much for coming back for another VidCast this month. And I'm really excited because I've hooked up here with Pam Holland, who I think, you know, we're kind of secret sisters.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yes. Because we do have a lot in common. We both do video productions.
Yes.
And we both love to travel.
Yes.
And we've both done portrait quilts.
Absolutely.
Which I think is pretty neat.
Yeah.
But you do yours a little bit different, I think. How do you do your portrait quilts?
Well, mine are applique, completely applique. I don't do much illustration on them, but I just use the illustration maybe just for the eyes and for some parts of the clothing.
So they're mainly applique,
Yep.
So you're not using any other technique of too much pens?
I do use draque on them, but not really on the face, but on the body and on the
clothing.
On the clothing. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But I don't do it on the face. I use thread on the face mainly.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Now, when you use thread on the face, is that in quilting or is that before it gets to the quilting stage?
No, that's when it's being quilted.
Now, you have a quilt that is your claim to fame. The one that's won you some prizes. What is the name of that quilt?
Well, you might be thinking of the 1776 quilt, that one of Houston, and a few other shows. And yes, it has become quite famous, and I just love that quilt, and it's a very emotional quilt for me. So
is it?
I love it. Yeah, I do.
Why is it an emotional quilt?
Well, I made it when my daughter was dying of cancer, and that was very tough. And so of course, you know, when I see that quilt, it always reminds me of her. So
right.
It's rather emotional.
Right.
It's called 1776, Heartache, Heritage and Happiness. So it's heartache because I made it when I had a lot of heartache. Heritage because I found out that my family had lived in that very town for 500 years.
Really? Oh,
so that's the heritage, and the happiness is the happiness that has brought me. So,
yeah, absolutely. Now, I noticed this morning, I met Pam at 6 a.m. to go for a walk around town, and I noticed that she already had her makeup on, although she said, well, no, not really.
I just said I had the lippy on.
And I said, well, what about the eyeliner? So what is it with the eyeliner?
It's a tattoo. I had it tattooed on, and it's a quilting project. You could do it for your guild if you really want to. You know, you could raise money, you could all go and have a tattoo.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't you think?
Okay, now how is this a quilting project?
Well, we were all quilters, and we took a little project with us. There were 4 of us, and we were of varying ages, and one of the ladies was in her 70s, and her eyebrows had dropped off with age, as they do, you know.
Yeah, they do.
And so she had hers tattooed on. Now, we had a little project to do while each of us was in the chair, and we had to complete it by the time we'd finished the whole process. Each person, once we'd sit down and we'd just quilt and laugh at the person in the chair.
Yeah. Now, if any of you decide to do this as a quilting project, I want to see photos.
Yeah, you would just contact Bonnie or I, and we can give you all the details on that.
She'll put you on the video.
And the other thing that really helps if you drink 3 margaritas beforehand, that really helps.
Yeah, I bet that would.
Yeah, it was a numbing effect.
Yeah, which would be a good thing. Now, you travel and teach a lot. What are some of the classes that you teach?
I teach portraits and landscapes mainly, and fabric illustration, draque, and that's probably about it. But I've got about 40 different classes, and most of those techniques are in those classes.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned something called draque, and so we're going to go take a look and see exactly what this draque is. So come on, let's go see what she's talking about when she says draque. All right, Pam, what exactly is this draque?
Draque is my word for drawing and applique, and I wanted to change the way my applique looked, so I decided that I would illustrate on top of it. Now, this is not new. It's not new. It's not a new technique. And I first saw it in the Smithsonian Museum, and I had to investigate how it was done. So in a lot of the old quilts, they used Indian ink, which is pigmented ink, and I decided that I would like to try and do that too on my applique.
So how long ago was it done?
Well, they've been doing it here in the United States for, probably since the 1700s, but the original started in the 1500s in Persia, in India as well. And they used to weave the finest cotton and then illustrate with quills and ink that they had manufactured from plants. And those quilt tops are still lasting today. They're just fabulous.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so what do we have going
Okay,
here?
so this is a little quilt that I teach, and this is just the quilt top, and it's a sample for my students, so it hasn't been quilted. And I have drawn with this black Pigma pen. I've drawn the outline. Now, I don't draw it freehand. I'm going to draw it by placing an image underneath and then tracing, so that I can get it quite accurate.
Right.
And this is a Pigma pen, a little bit different to the ones that you've probably seen. This one is a draftsman's pen, and it's pigment ink. And it's fabulous for drawing on fabric because it has a rounded edge. You know, some of the ones we've used have a square edge and then they get stuck in the waft and the weft, and this works.
And is this like ink that's in a fabric, or is it just...
This is exactly the same. It's pigmented ink, and it's the same as the fabric's dyed with.
Oh,
so
interesting.
It goes into the fabric, dyes the fabric, doesn't sit on top like a paint.
So have you coloured in all of this?
I've just coloured in all of this. And if you would like, I will demonstrate on how I've done that. And I've changed some of this too.
Now, wait a second. Did you colour this piece in?
No, that's actually fabric, and that's applique piece. So the two blend in together. Okay.
Right.
So we have this piece is fabric, this piece is fabric, and this piece here is fabric. And then I've changed it by adding a little shading underneath here with a black pen.
Oh, and even this red piece is fused fabric.
That's fused fabric here, and then I've created an impression of a little fold here, like a little petal, just by shading it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does this have to be heat set?
No, you just put it on and it will set. And to be really honest, you just can't get these on your garments, because if you get them on your garments, you won't get them off, trust me.
And then you'll be doing drape on your garment.
Yeah, I've got it all over some sweaters, and then I just draw on top in very funny places.
That's a good way to do it.
Absolutely. So that's what drape is, and I can show you. I can just shade a little bit of this leaf.
Yeah.
And I can blend.
So this looks like a different kind of pen.
Yeah, this one is a Fabrico pen, and I like this because it's got a nice long brush, and it has a brush one end and a point the other end.
Oh, that's nice.
So I can draw a flat line, or I can use it as a paintbrush, which is what I'm doing now. Nice. Because when I use it as a paintbrush, I'm just kissing the fabric. Now let's have a look. You can't see now where the edge of that fabric is.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. It just blends right in.
Absolutely. Now sometimes I use this to do backgrounds. So I've just done some portraits, and the background of the portrait is illustrated with these pens to create the effect of the landscape behind.
Oh, that sounds like a lot of work.
A little bit.
Yeah, well, it's all fun. It's all fun. And so is green the only color that you would use on green, or would you
No,
mix
you can
colors?
use another color, and there's a nice autumn color, which I don't have with me, but that's lovely. Now, the colors that I use most of the time are mud colors. But you can buy these in really bright colours, but I don't use bright colours because they don't blend with my applique. So all of these are mud colours, and they're colours that have a little bit of black in them.
All right, so here's a piece. This is a beautiful little duck.
Yeah,
Does he have drape on him?
Absolutely. So this is illustrated here. Actually, the whole thing is illustrated first on a piece of cream fabric. And it was a piece of fabric that actually had gold fleck on it, so I turned it over the other way.
Oh, okay. So
and then I drew the pattern, yes, from one of my photos. I drew the pattern onto the piece of fabric by putting the pattern on the light box and then the fabric on top. And then I drew the outline with a black Pigma pen. And you can see here that there's lots of the little dots. That's all it is. Just little dots there. And then I've appliqued over the top here.
So this is a drawing that you've done?
Yes.
It's not printed on fabric?
No. That's my drawing. And all these areas here are coloured in with these Pigma pens here.
Interesting.
So I've used a few colours. And if you look very carefully, you could see my black outline there.
Yes.
Can you see it?
I can.
Yes, yeah. And so this is just shaded with a sand pen. And I did a little bit of grey.
But I think it's really interesting how you have the texture of the feathers even added with the stitching.
Well, yes, then I've stitched over the top of the illustration.
Right.
So that once you do it over the top of the illustration, you're illustrating with thread as well as pen.
Right.
Yeah.
Did you do the shadow or his reflection in the water?
Yes, so that's just grey ink, and it's lovely and soft because it's ink, and he's moving in the water with his little leg. Looks like it's moving, yes. This is a little series I did for Monet's garden. Now, there's not a lot of draplique in here. However, I didn't want to have to put this all in fabric here. So can you see where I've drawn there? And then I've just stitched over the top, just to give the impression, just a little shading down the bottom here.
Right.
And then I've softened the edges here.
Oh, yes, even
so
here down.
Just taken it down here, and it softens the edges so that you don't just see the stitching, but you really have to look to see it.
Wow, that's amazing. Oh, and you know what? It looks like you're using a zigzag free
That's
motion.
free motion zigzag.
Yeah.
Leave the feed dogs up and just sew free motion.
Just go for it.
Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah. This is T for Tilly.
T for Tilly.
T for Tilly. It's an alphabet I did for my grandchildren, but my daughter's a bit worried because it hasn't got a head. So she thinks it needs a head, but I don't. All of the alphabet has these legs. Now this bit would be, I could put it in fabric, but I decided to illustrate it. So it's drawn on the fabric with the pens and then coloured in with these with the point end here.
Oh, yeah.
So I've made my own pattern here and then coloured in with a blue pen up here.
Right.
Then illustrated with black stitching.
Yeah, boy, does that really add an interesting texture to it. Cool. Your stuff is
Drawing
great.
an applique.
Drawing an applique.
Draplique.
Or draplique.
Absolutely.
Now, do you have a book out on this?
I don't have a book on this. I've got a DVD.
A DVD.
And, but I don't have a book on this, and one of these days I'll get to doing a book.
Well,
I haven't got time.
You would have to stay home long enough to actually write the book and do the samples.
That's a problem. That's a big problem.
I know. It's really cool.
Yeah.
Now, let me throw you a little bit of a curve, and let me ask you a question. What is your philosophy of life?
Yeah, you're going to throw that curveball. My philosophy really is to live every moment for the moment. Because we have had some tragedy in our family, and some of the people in our family that were going to have long lives didn't have long lives. I'm living every moment for them, and I enjoy everything I do. From the smallest thing, I get great enjoyment out of just seeing the way the sun sets on a leaf or something like that. I can never be bored. I can never be bored because I just want to take every moment as it comes and enjoy it.
Yes, and I think you just suck the juice right out of life. It's great.
Pretty much, pretty much.
Thank you so much for doing this with me.
Thank you.
And thank you all for joining me, and I hope you'll come back next month and see what I have for you then.
Thank you.
Thanks for being with me.